I'm here with my friend Dave, and he's done something that is pretty incredible, and it's going to be hard to believe for a lot of you watching this until you hear him explain it in full detail. So, Dave, right now we're in the coronavirus pandemic, and what everyone is saying is cold approach pickup, meeting women on the street or in a grocery store, it's impossible. It can't be done. But you have found that isn't exactly true, and that in fact the opposite might be the case. So tell me what you've managed to do in this last 1 week alone.
So in the last week, I managed to meet 3 women during day game and pull them directly home to my place within an hour. The fastest one was 30 minutes. 3 different women from approach through to my place, and I think the record was 1 hour to the bedroom, actually. So it's been quite easy, and I think that at the moment things are easier than it's ever been.
So that's going to be very difficult for a lot of people to believe. Can you explain why is it that women would be open to meeting a guy when there's this whole quarantine? You would think people would be very skeptical of meeting a stranger. They wouldn't want to talk. They would just blow you off immediately. Why wouldn't that be the case?
I'd like to put in a disclaimer. I don't recommend people go out there and approach a lot of girls and do a lot of day game at the moment. But what is happening at the moment, depending on what country you're in, I'm in Australia, and where our laws are quite specific. Social distancing, you have to have a reason to go out. No more than 2 people to be out at any one moment. So you still can go to the shops, pubs, clubs, cafes, they're all closed. These are pretty much the restrictions that are out there. But
Right.
within the restrictions, there's a lot of options right now. And so what I've done is I've devised a real simple way to get laid during the coronavirus, and it has worked for me, not by approaching a lot of girls, by approaching less girls than I've ever approached in my life. I'll approach 1 or 2 per day. That's it. I'll go down to buy some food, or go to just simple things, go out and do some exercise. I'm not spending a lot of time outdoors. And I'll just break it down. I'll make it really simple for your viewers. I'll just break it down from beginning to end, how I've devised this strategy. So the psychology behind it is that women are scared at the moment. The coronavirus is scary. A lot of people have lost their jobs. A lot of women, when they lose their jobs, in general, I'm generalizing, just for simplistic sake, they start to look to a man, especially if they're alone and they're bored and they don't have a man. They're more likely to want to have a man around, because it makes them feel a little bit more secure and safe, etc. Especially with the economic collapse and there's the scary invisible virus around. So all of these factors play into my hands because I've come up with a hack. And that hack is go outside and simply approach. And when you approach, you obviously keep your distance, your social distancing, so you're not breaking any rules. And I start off with a simple joke, which is, how's Armageddon treating you? Most of them, they just have a little chuckle, they giggle a little bit, and then I back it up with, because, the zombie apocalypse is upon us and everyone's dying, and I double down on this dark humor, then they have a little bit of a joke. That's a little bit of a joke, sorry. And they just go, ha ha ha. And then I ask them straight out, I go, how's work? Are you working at the moment? Almost all of them tell me that they have either lost their jobs or they have had reduced hours, etc., and they're worried about the future. Then I just go straight into logistics. What are you doing right now? What are you doing for dinner? That simple. And then at that moment, often whatever they've got planned for dinner, I say, hey, look, why don't you come and have dinner with me? And then I try to move them literally within 1 minute to go and buy food. There's no cafes, there's no restaurants, there's no bars open. So we're not going to sit down in a cafe or restaurant. We go straight to a shopping center and buy food. And then that conversation happens as we are bouncing around the shopping center. She goes, well, where are we going to eat? I go, well, we can't go to a restaurant and we can't sit in the park, or we might get a fine for paying all these rules. There's only really one option. So that option is my place and I will cook for you. And so, in fact, the coronavirus has made logistics perfect for me. I just literally just go, hey, you hungry? Come around to my place. One or two approaches per day, and I've pulled 3 girls to my bedroom within an hour maximum in the last week. And I've got
So
a few.
about how many approaches did you do total this last week?
The the most amount of approaches that I made in one day was 4. So I walk down to the shops, say go through my opener, and some girls will just they'll have their mask on and they'll just keep walking, and that's
Yeah.
still counted as an approach. I've made the least amount of approaches I ever have. The worst was 4 days, four approaches, sorry, in one day, but the minimum is one. And I would even count me saying the opener and the girl not even replying and walking off. That's how little work I've done. But once they have hooked and actually listened to my opener, and they're willing to come for some dinner, it's ridiculous. The conversion rate is the highest it's ever been in my life.
What are we talking? So you did maybe 20 approaches, 30 approaches to get these 3 girls to come on with you. How many total approaches?
Probably, I wouldn't have even done 20 in a week, maybe 15 maximum.
That's pretty crazy.
And
And so
it's
what usually outside of the coronavirus, I mean, conversion rate or pickup batting average, whatever you want to call it, what is it normally compared to now?
Yeah, I guess my batting average is usually 3%, which is relatively low. So 100 approaches, usually 3 lays. The problem with that also is that I'm almost 40 and I go for girls that are way above my sexual marketplace value. So I only really approach girls that I find really attractive that are under 25 through to 21. I mainly target approaching 21-year-old girls that
Sure.
really have no business talking to. That's really why my 3% rate is so low. Because, and also for guys at home, if you're an extremely unattractive guy, or if you're from a demographic that is to deal with adversity within that specific country that you're in, you're going to resonate with me too, because I'm definitely no jacked Chad. I'm almost a 40-year-old guy who's had 2 hip replacement and just has good game and is able to innovate in the moment, and doesn't follow the mainstream media and thinks for myself. So that's another factor.
So normally it's about a 3% approach to close to lay,
Yeah.
and now it's almost 10 times that.
Yes, it's an amazing batting average at the moment. I've got to say that I love
That's,
this. This period has just changed everything for me. I'm loving it.
and so your formula, if you will, it's very, very simple. It only takes a few minutes and you're already inviting the girl to dinner, right?
Yeah, literally within maybe 30 seconds.
That's crazy. So, I mean, you said it very succinctly, just so people, have it totally imprinted. Can you go through 20 seconds, the 4 steps that you take?
Okay, so her response is usually different every time, depending on the girl, of course. But generally, the approach is I don't even really need to approach from the front or anything, because at the moment, people are so aware of their surroundings. All I have to do is open my mouth, and people are like this, because people are so
Yeah.
paranoid at the moment.
Mm.
Literally, all I need to do is from 2 meters, 3 meters away, go, "Hey, how's Armageddon treating you?" Smile, make sure that you're not intimidating, and then they need to register. They take a second to register the joke, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, Armageddon, yeah." And then it goes, "So the zombie apocalypse, everyone's dying, right? I think most of us are going to die soon. How do you feel about that?" And I smile, and then they're like, "Ha ha ha, yeah," and they get the joke. And then I just go straight into how's work? Everyone's losing their job. You still got a job? The majority of the girls will tell me that they've reduced hours or they're unemployed at the moment and they're a little bit worried about their financial situation. And then literally I go straight into, what are you doing now? What are you doing for dinner? Where are you going? You live around here? Boom, boom, boom. Maybe come and have dinner with me. And the strike rate is phenomenal when I get to that point.
But what about women who would use Tinder? Why don't girls just, they can just meet any guy they want on Tinder?
Okay, so they're obviously worried about hygiene and people who might be sick. A few messages on Tinder. I don't care how good your six pack is or how much of a Chad you are. There's still a risk of them catching the virus in the taxi going to your place, because that's generally the deal, isn't it? Chads sit back and swipe right and get all the hottest girls to come back to their place. Well, they're getting cock blocked by the coronavirus, and most Chads don't have game anyway. What I'm doing is
Right.
I'm cutting out man, and I'm meeting them straight up. They can see that I'm not coughing or sniffling or have any showing any symptoms. They can see that I'm right there, and they've literally have no other options. There's no, even those party girls can't go to the club and get all that validation. So I'm there providing that validation straight up to a girl who is in kind of like a little bit of a distressed situation, and they
Yeah.
realize that the game, I'm really willing to move this interaction forward. I don't go for the number, by the way. I definitely don't go for the number. It's literally just trying to pull. And if they don't, it's like, okay, cool, see you later. And then I just go about my business. Most guys at home also will be seeing a lot of pickup coaches taking down these digital products on how to swipe right, as if nobody knows how to do that, and watching the mainstream media and panicking. There's also a lot of opportunities out there, not just with meeting girls, it's with business as well. There's so many opportunities. When I think it's Warren Buffett, I think it was Warren Buffett, wasn't it, that said that once there's fear on the street, that's when there's opportunity, something along those lines.
Mm.
I'm paraphrasing, but there's a lot of opportunity in business, in dating, in everything at the moment. And the herd is sitting at home, panicking, watching mainstream media, and don't you be one of those. If your audience or people out there want to do that, that's great for me, because it's giving me more opportunities, and I'm loving this time at the moment. It's actually the best time. It's better than being on a holiday, I have to admit.
And also, just keep in mind that only about 3% of women in America have ever downloaded Tinder. So there are a lot of women who don't like dating apps. They just find it off-putting for whatever reason. And a lot of them are single. 50% of women are generally single. And yet they have no way to meet guys. They have literally no way to meet guys if they don't like dating apps. So you are, in terms of supply and demand, this is an unprecedented situation that it's working in your favor like it never was before, because these women can't go to parties. They're not hanging out with their friends. They're not, going to the frat. So if you approach them, you are that one guy. You are their only option. So unless they find you totally repulsive, you'll probably be good enough. That might not be the way you want to think of it, but technically that's the case.
That's
So
reality situation.
yeah, that's the reality. That's the harsh truth. And it's a situation that you might consider taking advantage of, so long as it's not breaking any rules in your country. So, Dave, I think this was incredible. This was a blueprint for something that most people thought was impossible. And I think a lot of people are going to want to know more about you. So where can they find you?
One Man's Life Mission, just search it in YouTube, or there'll be the link in the description of this video.